The Grand Hall of the Galactic Empire was unlike any place in the galaxy. It was not simply a room or a building. It was a monument carved from a mountain of black stone and covered with metals that no simple creature could break. Its pillars reached so high that even flying beasts would look like insects inside. The walls were lined with golden banners, each one carrying the symbol of an alien race that had proven its worth to the Empire. The hall was more than a place. It was a test. Only the strongest were ever allowed to step inside. Only the rulers, generals, and champions of powerful species could earn a seat here. For centuries, this hall had been called by one name, the Hall of Legends. Inside, thousands of alien leaders sat in curved rows that circled the central throne. Each seat belonged to a race that had shed rivers of blood to gain the Empire's respect. Some looked like beasts with tusks longer than swords. Some were beings of light, glowing softly as if their bodies were made of stars. Others carried metal limbs, part flesh and part machine, whispering in voices that sounded more like grinding steel than speech. Every being in that hall knew one thing: weakness was death. The Empire did not forgive weakness, and in all this history, in all the centuries of wars, deals, and betrayals, one thing had never happened. No human had ever entered this hall. The reason was simple. Humans were considered too small, too fragile, too chaotic. They were seen as a species that wandered at the edge of the galaxy, fighting among themselves, building strange machines, and daring to challenge powers far greater than them. To the Empire, they were noisy children with dangerous toys. They had never been invited, and no one expected them to ever step foot in this place. But on this day, something happened that no alien was ready for. The enormous doors of the Grand Hall groaned as they began to open. The sound echoed like thunder across the chamber. Every alien paused. Conversations ended. Glowing eyes turned toward the entrance. The Emperor himself, an ancient being whose body shimmered with silver scales, narrowed his gaze from the shadow of the doorway. Figures appeared. At first, it seemed impossible. They were short compared to most giants in the hall. They wore no armor, carried no banners, and marched with no guards. They did not glow, they did not hiss, they did not carry plasma weapons or blades carved from suns. They were humans. 5 of them walked side by side, their steps calm, almost casual. One had a simple jacket, another carried what looked like a bag slung across his shoulder, and the third even wore shoes that squeaked faintly on the polished floor. The silence was so heavy it felt like the air itself had frozen. Then whispers began to spread. Humans? Here. This is a mistake. Who allowed them? The Emperor did not speak yet. He only leaned forward, his scaled claws resting on the throne. His eyes glowed, scanning these strange arrivals. Who dared to walk where legend stood? The humans did not bow. They did not kneel. They walked straight into the circle, into the very center where the most powerful of all species gathered, as if this were nothing more than a simple meeting room. And then, something happened that shocked the aliens even more. One of the humans, tall, with dark hair and a calm expression, smiled. He looked around the hall, at the banners, the golden walls, the mighty throne of the Emperor. Then he said in a voice that carried across the chamber, "Nice place you've got here. Bit too shiny, though." The hall erupted with gasps, hisses, and furious cries. Insult, arrogance. They mocked the hall. But the humans only stood there, calm as stone. The Grand Hall was trembling with voices. Thousands of alien rulers hissed, roared, and shouted at the humans' words. No one had ever dared to mock this place. No one had ever called the Empire's sacred hall too shiny. The Emperor raised one clawed hand, and at once the noise died. Silence fell again, heavy and sharp. His glowing silver eyes locked on the humans, and his voice rolled across the chamber like thunder. "You stand in the Hall of Legends. You stand before the throne of the eternal empire, yet you do not kneel. You do not bow. You insult the sacred order. Who gave you permission to enter? Every alien leaned forward, eager to hear what the humans would say. Some expected them to collapse in fear, to beg for forgiveness, to tremble under the emperor's voice. But the humans did none of these things. The tall one, the same who had spoken before, shrugged. Permission? The doors were open. We thought we'd have a look around. The aliens gasped in disbelief. The emperor's claws dug into his throne. Number. One spoke to him like this. Another human, shorter, with messy hair and a grin on his face, added, honestly, we expected something bigger. For all the legends, the place feels more like a fancy banquet hall, missing a dance floor though. A ripple of outrage swept through the chamber. Alien generals stood, their weapons glowing. One creature, a hulking beast covered in armor plates, roared so loudly that the walls shook. You dare joke in the presence of the Empire? You should be crushed where you stand. The humans only looked at each other, as if deciding who should answer. Then the woman among them, calm and sharp-eyed, said, crushed? That's dramatic. Back on Earth, we usually just say, you're overreacting. Some aliens hissed in fury. Others whispered in unease. This was not how prey acted. This was not how the weak behaved. Prey begged. The weak trembled. But these humans were laughing. The emperor rose slowly from his throne. His height was terrifying, his body shimmering with the power of centuries. You mock this hall. You mock this empire. Do you understand what that means? The first human raised an eyebrow. Yeah, it means you take yourselves too seriously. The chamber exploded with rage. Creatures howled, some pounding their weapons against the floor. The sound was deafening. Yet through it all, the humans stood calm, relaxed, even amused. Finally, the emperor slammed his claw against the floor, and silence returned. You are either fools, he said coldly, or you are mad. No one speaks this way here. No one insults the empire and lives. The humans exchanged glances. The one with the messy hair chuckled. Well, we've been called worse things, mad, stubborn, dangerous. Usually depends on the mood. The woman added, and you might be surprised how often fools win in. The end. The emperor narrowed his glowing eyes. For a moment, the hall was frozen, waiting. Every alien leaned closer, watching, listening. Something about these humans was wrong, terribly wrong, because no matter how much they were threatened, no matter how much fury surrounded them, they were not afraid. And that, in this hall of predators, was the greatest insult of all. The silence in the grand hall was broken by the sound of armored feet striking the floor. From one of the upper rows, a massive figure rose. His body was covered in dark plates of bone-like armor, his head crowned with horns that curved like blades. In his 4 hands, he carried weapons humming with energy. This was General Varkish of the Croth, a warlord whose name carried terror across dozens of systems. He had led campaigns that turned planets into ash. His people believed only in strength, only in battle. To him, honor was written in blood and fear. Varkish pointed one weapon toward the humans standing in the circle. His deep, rumbling voice shook the chamber. Enough of this mockery. You dare laugh in the Hall of Legends? Then prove yourselves. Show us your power, or be crushed here and now. The aliens roared their approval. They wanted to see blood. They wanted to see these strange, arrogant creatures humiliated. For too long, the humans had spoken without fear. Now the Empire demanded. They pay the price, but the humans did not reach for weapons. They did not prepare for a fight. Instead, the tall one with dark hair raised a hand, almost casually. No, he said simply. The hall froze. Even the Emperor tilted his head. General. Varkish snarled. No? You refuse the challenge? The human's voice was calm, steady. "We did not come here for war. We did not come here to fight. We came for truth." The aliens erupted in disbelief. Some hissed, others laughed in cruel tones. Truth? Weakness? Cowards? They shouted dot, but the woman among the humans stepped forward. Her eyes were sharp, her tone cold. "You call us cowards because we do not draw weapons. But tell me, do you think strength is only measured in how many you can kill?" The hall grew quiet. Some aliens sneered, but others hesitated. Her words carried a strange weight. The messy-haired human chuckled softly. "You want a demonstration? Fine, but not of weapons. Of history." "History?" Varkish spat the word. "We do not care for your stories." "You should," the tall one replied, his eyes darkening. "Because history is what made us. And our history is written in war." The humans began to speak, one after another. Their voices painted pictures more terrifying than any blade or cannon dot. They spoke of wars, fought on Earth, wars so massive that the sky itself burned with fire. They spoke of empires rising and falling, of millions dying in a single battle, of cities reduced to ash. They spoke of weapons that poisoned the land for centuries, of machines built to erase entire nations in seconds. Every sentence was simple, but every word cut like a blade. "On our world," the tall one said, "we fought wars before we even had machines to fly. We built weapons from stone and steel, and we used them until oceans turned red." The woman added, "When we learned to split the atom, we built bombs that could shatter entire cities. And then we built more of them, thousands more. Enough to burn our whole world to ash 100 times over." A ripple of silence moved through the chamber. Even the most hardened warlords leaned back, their eyes narrowing. These were not empty boasts. The way the humans spoke, the steady tone in their voices, told everyone that this was truth. The messy-haired one smiled grimly. "So tell us, General Varkish, do you really think we need to fight you here, in this hall, to prove what we are?" The general's hands tightened on his weapons, but he did not attack. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in his burning eyes. The aliens in the hall whispered among themselves. Some hissed in disbelief. Others looked uneasy. They had thought humans were fragile. They had thought humans were prey. But prey did not carry such a past. Prey did not speak of firestorms and weapons that could erase entire worlds. The Emperor's silver eyes glowed brighter as he studied the humans. His throne was silent, his thoughts unreadable. But deep within, even he felt the weight of their words. The humans were not fighting. They were not begging. They were simply speaking. And yet, with nothing but words, they were shaking the hall. The grand hall was still heavy with silence. The humans had spoken of wars, of firestorms, of weapons that turned cities into dust. The aliens had listened, some in disbelief, some in fear. But General Varkish's voice returned, deep and angry. "Words are nothing. Legends mean nothing without proof. If your species truly holds such power, then show it. Prove it here and now, before the throne of the Empire." The chamber filled with agreement. Hundreds of alien rulers slammed their weapons, claws, and limbs against the floor. "Prove it! Prove it!" They chanted. The Emperor sat still, his silver eyes fixed on the humans. He did not demand proof, but he also did not stop the call. He wanted to see. He wanted to know. The tall human sighed softly, then reached into the bag slung across his shoulder. The aliens tensed, some raising their weapons, expecting a hidden gun or a blade, but what he pulled out was a box. It was small, no larger than a child's toy. Its surface was plain metal, scratched and dented. The humans placed it on the shining floor of the hall. For a moment, the chamber was filled with confusion. Then came laughter. "This is your proof? A box? Pathetic." Even Varkish bared his teeth in a cruel grin. "You dare mock us further? Do you think a toy will save you from this hall? But the humans did not answer. The messy-haired one knelt, pressed a button on the box, and stood back. At first, nothing happened. The aliens sneered. Some spat in disgust. Others laughed so hard the sound echoed like thunder. And then, the box opened. Its surface unfolded silently, like petals of a strange metallic flower. From its core, a tiny drone rose into the air, no larger than a bird. Its wings hummed with a soft, high-pitched sound. The aliens laughed harder. A drone? That is all? Even children on my world build such toys. One shouted. But then the drone moved. It zipped upward, spinning once, and then streams of green light burst from its sensors. The beam struck the pillars of the hall, scanning. Faster than eyes could follow, the golden banners flickered. The armored guards at the doors suddenly froze in place, their weapons dead in their hands. The lights in the hall dimmed, then blazed. The entire Chukka's systems began to lock. The laughter stopped. The aliens turned in shock as their communication devices went silent. Weapons lost their glow. Control panels blinked red, one after another. Then with a loud metallic clang, the Emperor's throne locked. The great seat that no force had ever touched sealed itself in place. The Emperor tried to rise, but the systems of the hall itself resisted him. The drone circled calmly, its lights pulsing. The humans stood still, watching. The tall one crossed his arms. The woman sipped from a small flask she had carried. As if she were drinking water at a picnic, panic began to spread. The throne is locked. My weapon is dead. The system's impossible. Nothing can break the hall's core. General Varkesh swung one of his massive weapons at the drone. The blade whistled through the air, but the drone vanished in a blur, reappearing on the other side of the chamber before the strike had finished. The humans chuckled softly. Careful, the messy-haired one said. Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself chasing toys. The aliens stared wide-eyed. This was not just technology. This was something far beyond their reach. The hall, which had never been touched by enemy hands, had been taken in seconds by a single small device. The Emperor's silver eyes glowed with fury, but beneath it lay something deeper, something colder. For the first time in centuries, he felt something he had forgotten. He felt fear. And the humans? They looked as if this were the easiest thing in the world. The grand hall was silent, but not the silence of peace. It was a silence heavy with shock, confusion, and a fear that crawled beneath the scales and armor of every alien ruler present. The drones, the locks, the technology, the calm indifference. Of the humans, it had all shaken the very foundation of the empire. The tall human with dark hair stepped forward. His hands were still folded behind his back, his expression calm and composed. Around him, the hum of machinery and the faint glow of the drone's lights gave the hall a surreal atmosphere, as if the world itself had paused to watch. The Emperor's silver eyes, bright and furious, scanned him like a storm. Enough of games, he said. His voice carried authority, history, and the weight of countless generations. Explain yourselves. Why are you here? Why have you insulted, mocked, and humiliated the empire before all its greatest leaders? The tall human looked around at every glowing eye, every armored form, every beastly snarl and hiss. And then he spoke, his voice steady and clear. We are here, he said, not for war, not for submission, not for treasure or honor. We are here to remind you of something very simple. Never underestimate humanity. A murmur ran through the hall. Some aliens hissed in anger. Others whispered to one another, faces pale with disbelief. The woman among the humans stepped forward, her voice smooth and piercing. We did not come to kneel. We did not come to beg. We did not come to fight. We came to remind the galaxy that humans are not creatures to be measured by strength alone. The Emperor leaned forward slightly, his silver scales catching the light. And what exactly do you mean by that? He demanded. The messy-haired human smiled faintly. It means, he said, gesturing to the drone still hovering quietly, that power comes in many forms. Not just weapons, not just armies, not just fear. Sometimes power is quiet, small, unnoticed, until it moves. He pressed a button on the drone, and instantly, the locks on the Emperor's throne disengaged. The guard's systems reactivated, weapons powered back on. The drone folded itself neatly, returning to the small box as if nothing had happened. The aliens blinked, unsure whether to cheer, attack, or run. The humans' calmness, their casual posture, their joking remarks, it was more terrifying than a full-scale invasion. The tall human crossed his arms. We did not destroy your hall. We did not harm you. We only showed you that underestimating us is foolish. A low, uneasy hum ran through the chamber. Whispers spread from row to row. The humans, they are different. They are dangerous. They are unpredictable. The Emperor's voice cut through the whispers. You have tested us. You have humiliated us before our leaders, and yet you do not strike. You leave, simply reminding us of your presence. Yes, the woman said, her eyes sharp and unyielding. We leave because there is nothing to take, nothing to prove. You will remember this day. Not because we fought you, but because we reminded you that humans are never to be taken lightly. Then the humans turned toward the enormous doors. Their steps were slow, confident, even casual. Behind them, the Hall of Legends seemed smaller, quieter, almost embarrassed by the presence of beings who had faced nothing but humans' calm indifference and wit.